And a very warm welcome to Gordon Bennett TV. I'm Air Sports presenter Regan Tetlow, and I'm here with Meet Director of the 63rd Coupe du Monde, Gordon Bennett, Markus Haggeney. Very good morning, Markus.
Morning, Regan. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, my friend. Always is. We're going to be bringing you many live updates throughout the days of the next 10 days, I think it is. We're going to be with you live tonight from 7 p.m. with the launch. But right now, let's start the process and find out just what this event is all about. Markus, you're a very busy man. Thank you very much for your time. Pleasure. Tell us what is the history of this event?
Well, the history is a very long history. The first Gordon Bennett race took off in 1906 in Paris. And it was, of course, at that time a major global activity and had a huge audience in Paris.
And Gordon Bennett, as an Englishman, this is an exclamation. When something's gone crazy, we shout, Gordon Bennett! And people are reading it and saying, what is this? Who was Gordon Bennett?
Well, he was a newspaper tycoon, and that gentleman, a U.S. Citizen, sponsored lots of entertaining or adventurous expeditions. And ballooning, of course, was the first aviation activity, so he thought that would make a big story. He was also subsidizing funding expeditions to Central Africa and other stuff in order to make his newspaper, the New York Herald Tribune, more readable and have a story to sell.
What a legacy of life that your name becomes an exclamation throughout the English-speaking word. We've got 20 teams, 20 of the best gas balloon teams in the world. Markus will agree, it's the most difficult of all ballooning sports.
Well, it's a three-dimensional chess game, which is happening between surface and up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 meters over 3 or 4 days. It's very demanding. You need to have a lot of courage, of course, but also be ready to stand in a cold and freezing environment at high altitudes over a long time. So it's really demanding. And it's not only a challenge for pilots, but it's equally challenging for the teams on the ground supporting their pilots. So it's really a team effort in the end. The pilots stand on the podium, but the pilots really need a team, and it's a big exercise for them.
It is indeed. A lot of people are familiar with hot air balloons, and I'm sure we've got a lot of people watching now who have been following the Gordon Bennett race over many, many years. But for anybody who's just tuning in, what's the difference between gas balloons and hot air?
Well, hot air balloons are flying because the lifting gas is created by heating the air using propane burners. So your endurance is limited by the amount of fuel you can carry with you. And usually a hot air balloon has fuel for 90 minutes plus minus. So competitive flight in a world championship is usually in the range of 60 minutes to 2 hours. Then the flight is over. In the Gordon Bennett race, the lifting gas is hydrogen, or sometimes helium. And this is in an envelope, and it stays in an envelope. And the endurance is limited as long as you have ballast to throw overboard, you stay in the air. And these balloons can fly much longer. So the longest flight ever in the history of the Gordon Bennett was done by a German pilot called Wilhelm Eimers. He flew 92 hours and 16 minutes non-stop in an open wicker basket. So you see 2 hours versus 90 hours.
A big endurance. It's probably one of the biggest romances, one of the biggest expeditions left in aviation.
Oh, I would say so, yes. Very, very true so, yes.
And to get ready for tonight, for the 7 p.m. takeoff, we've got to get those 20 envelopes filled with hydrogen, and that's arriving now, isn't it, on the trucks?
Yeah, balloons are now ready and on the launch field. Last night, as we all know, we drew the launch sequence. So we now inflate in the sequence of their expected takeoff time. And there's a reason why we drew the launch sequence, because it has a strategic element. Some people like to take off early and be the first to play around and take a competitive advantage by having a certain strategy. Other pilots want to take off as last or in the lower third. And it has quite a big impact. So we nullify this effect by drawing the sequence and giving it a random effect, which is part of the excitement.
Behind us on the screen, we can see the inflation, one of the teams starting already. And there's an element of danger with the inflation, all this hydrogen, isn't there?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it danger because hydrogen is a gas and is flammable like many other gases. Even petrol in a car is flammable. You need to follow safety procedures, and people are very well aware. And hydrogen, well, of course, people see images from the past and are scared, but in this kind of operation, it's pretty much under control, and people really know how to do it. The key to it is that you limit the number of the people on the launch field. The access is strictly controlled. All the elements of a balloon need to be conductive to avoid differences in the currency when they are inflated, and that works pretty well. We haven't had an issue since decades.
Fantastic. And we always try and do the launch around a full moon, or as full as a moon as possible. I saw last night, it was pretty bright.
Yeah, full moon is what pilots like because especially when you have no clouds like today, and the next days are forecast as well, you see the landscape beautifully. So it helps you in navigation, and it's just pleasant to fly under full moon. But also it has additional safety element in case people should decide to land at night. They have additional light coming from the moon, even though most pilots now have night goggles, and they can even land when it's completely dark. It's surprising technology which these guys have on board. So the moon is adding a romantic but also a safety element.
Yeah, we're going to be bringing you some interviews with the teams and having a look at the tech they've got. I didn't know they had night vision goggles. Obviously, that's really makes a difference.
Yeah, some do. Not all of them, but I believe by now most have, yes.
So the sporting element of this event, Markus, obviously under the FAI rules, the World Air Sports Federation, what's the goal? We know it's about endurance and distance. How is it measured?
Well, the goal is to fly the furthest. So we measure the straight line distance from takeoff to landing. So it doesn't matter if balloons fly in circles or have a strategy which takes them far out and takes them back. In the end, we just measure the straight line from takeoff to landing. And we do that, of course, via electronic means. We have GPSs, and we have GPSs transmitting their position in real time. That's why we put the tracks on the screen, and we monitor their flights. And in the end, we just look at the coordinates, takeoff and landing, and then we calculate the distance and know who's best. So time doesn't matter, only the distance.
You can follow all the action on the Gordon Bennett TV, and we've got the tracking system as well. It's so addictive. We can be up all night. Well, you're up all night on the first night, and we are as well, checking to see who's going what direction, who's going west, who's going east, who's getting the most distance. It's really exciting. Once it starts going on, we're going to be bringing you all the updates of that with the weather control and with the ATC. The air traffic control is very in detailed, isn't it? It takes many months to get the permissions.
Well, I mean, that's true. As we all know, we have a lot of air traffic in Europe, and balloons are in this competition are not only flying low. They use the airspace to the full extent, which means they might go up to more than 5,000 meters. And obviously they are using airspace which is usually absorbed by commercial air traffic. And the air traffic in Europe is immense. We have 30,000 commercial flights each day in the European skies. And it's not a problem if they are flying at altitudes 10, 11, 12,000 meters. We don't go that high. But they land someday and they take off. So there's always a mixture of low traffic flying low and flying high. And we are using that airspace. So we definitely depend on a cooperation with the air traffic control. And we established a good relationship with the players in Switzerland, in Germany, in France. We had several personal visits. We have daily telephone conferences with them. They know we are coming. And of course, pilots have to follow the rules of the air.
Well, we're going to check out my French a little bit to see exactly where we are. We're at the Aérodrome de Pierre de Montbéliard. I was told last night that was horrible French. But go on, you try it.
Oh, I can't do that. But I would say Montbéliard.
Montbéliard, that's where we are. So why are we here? It changes every year. Tell us how that works.
Well, the winning nation defines where the next race is going to happen. So 2 years ago, the French team, Vincent Leys and Christophe Auvert, they won. And that's why the French Aero Club had the honor to be the host for this year's race. And next year, following the same principle, we'll all be meeting again in Poland, because last year the winner was a team from Poland.
In the finals, the wins, very exciting. Going back 2 years, that French team, we knew they had to thread that needle between, I think it was Belarus and Kaliningrad, that 30-kilometer channel to get through.
Yeah, correct. The airspace is not free the way we would like to have it. So we have to respect that certain airspaces are out of bounds for us. Kaliningrad is one of that, and Belarus as well, even though we have very good contacts to our friends in Belarus and in Russia. And I believe in the next years we will open these airspaces. But last year it was true, and the year before, that this little gateway between Belarus and Kaliningrad was really the target to get through. And the French sneaked through and made it.
It was absolutely brilliant. It is a world-class event under the eyes of the FAI, the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, and the International Olympic Committee as well. And we've got some representatives from the IOC here today.
Well, indirectly, the FAI is a recognized federation, recognized by the International Olympic Committee. And part of our recognition is that we follow the anti-doping procedures. So the representative, in a way, is fulfilling this duty to perform anti-doping measures or tests during the day. And 5 pilots had been picked in the briefing this morning. They are now being checked in order that FAI meets the obligations with the IOC and that we prove that we are running a clean sport.
Fantastic. Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What's going on right now? What's the predictions? We know we've got the inflation stage happening out on the field. We can see it there. Well, let's get Markus to take us through the Meteor and the predictions of the flight past. Just explain what we've got on screen here, man.
Okay, what we see here is an output of a meteorological model. We call it trajectories. This is a homepage called Meteor Blue. There are some sophisticated tools available where you can analyze the movement of wind depending on the altitude chosen. So on the top level, we see the altitude chosen for this estimation and calculation: 540 meters, 1500 meters, and 3500 meters. And you see how the winds take different headings depending on the altitude. And obviously the balloons are flying in that level, so this gives us an indication about the principal options which pilots can choose from. And obviously pilots are not staying at the same altitude, so they are changing the altitude, low, high, not too many times, because it's inefficient from a fuel perspective, gas perspective, but it shows us the field of play. So for this race we see 3 different strategies. Obviously France might be an issue. If people fly low, if they go a little higher, they will get out of the faster wind on the surface, stay very close, and then finally stay north of the Alps to go into Austria. And if pilots should decide to go high straight after takeoff and cross the Alps, this would take them to southern Italy in 60 hours.
Southern Italy in 60 hours, that's fast.
Well, yes and no. Each color difference is 1 hour, so it's not too fast. It's doable. The challenge with Italy is the airspace in northern Italy. As we all know, there are lots of airfields. First of all, we have to deal with Zurich. Of course, we are talking to them because the Zurich airport is operational until 11:30 tonight. And we have to avoid that we interfere with their last incoming airplanes. So we have an agreement with Zurich that we only will launch the balloons if we can avoid the airspace before 11:30. And then when people cross the Alps during night and arrive in Italy on a Saturday morning, obviously you have airfields like Padua, Milano, and so on, Bergamo, lots of these, and they have their own airspace regimes which we have to follow. And pilots need to take this into consideration in their strategy because when an airspace is closed, it's closed for the competition. Or at least we have to look at the level of infringement and talk to ATC stations in Italy. And of course we are here in Montbéliard as a team to support the pilots and open the gateways as much as we can, but still we are few in a sky of 30,000 each day flying in Europe.
And the strategies that these teams are going to take, are they going to go high and fast down towards Italy, or stay low and west over France, or try and catch the east? This is the closely guarded secret from each team. Their strategy is planned and it's tight-lipped.
Correct. They don't talk to me. I have my own observations, but they don't tell me. but it will become pretty obvious when they took off. We will see immediately after takeoff if they're staying low or if they go high. So the first 3, 4, 5 hours we will get an indication about the big different strategies we will see.
Well, it's all lined up for a fantastic day of action here in Montpellier for the 63rd Coupe du Monde of Gordon Bennett. We're going to be bringing you lots of live and lots of pre-recorded interviews as well with the teams and with all the officials here. So stick with us and stick around. And if you've got any questions, you can send them through on the live stream as well. In fact, we've got one just come through now. I think it's a German question, Markus. Can you tell us what that says?
Well, that's Antje. Hi, Antje. She's wishing all of us, all pilots and crew members, a good and safe and long flight. Please return safely back home. Glück ab and gut Land, which is the farewell wish in German language. Glück ab and gut Land.
Thank you very much, and we make sure that you do join us tonight live at 7 p.m. for the launch. It's a very emotional and big spectacular event with each team launching from the platform with their national anthem playing and thousands of people cheering them on, and they're chucking out confetti and streamers. It's really a big emotional event.
It is. Even for me, I've seen it many times now, as you have seen it a couple of times. When they take off to the skies at night, it's always very touching, even for me and for everybody on board, of course, as well.
Well, from Markus and me in the studio, we'll catch up with you a little bit later. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for being in the studio, Markus.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you later here live on Gordon Bennett TV.